So I got another one that I think is kind of interesting. So here's an industry that's trying to kind of navigate the post-pandemic world, if you will. This is actually a BBC News article. I got this particular one is off of Yahoo News, but this actually comes from BBC News. The headline reads: "Coronavirus with WrestleMania, the show must go on no matter what." And this article is dated April 8th, 2020. Now, we don't talk about sports a lot. In fact, I don't know if we've ever even talked about sports on this program before. But wrestling, of course, is a middle ground of sports entertainment. In fact, that's the phrase that McMahon uses, is he calls it sports entertainment because, and I'm really sorry, spoiler alert, if you don't know, pro wrestling's fake. Sorry if you didn't know that. But there's also a lot of crossover between comic book fans and wrestling fans because there's a lot of bleed over. Wrestlers are in a lot of ways like, larger than life, real life superheroes because they are real people embracing a character on stage, essentially. So this has been interesting. We haven't talked about this before, but it's something I've been watching. It's kind of interesting. So it says football, basketball, baseball, all canceled because of coronavirus. But when it comes to wrestling, must the show go on? WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of wrestling, attracting thousands of fans a year and watched on television by many more. This year, the event held without an audience for the first time and broadcast over the weekend of the 4th and 5th of April from the World Wrestling Entertainment's training facility in Florida. 53 performers appeared across 18 matches, including one match with 5 wrestlers and 1 referee in the ring at once. And another segment saw around 10 people, including recently signed former NFL star Rob Gronkowski, in a brawl. Broadcast took place days after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued a statewide stay-at-home order as the number of confirmed corona cases rose. I'm not going to get the official number. As coronavirus has stepped through the U.S., sports events around the country have been canceled or postponed. WWE faced calls to cancel WrestleMania. Critics pointed to Roman Reigns, one of its most prominent wrestlers, who said he, quote, made a choice to pull out of the main event. Reigns has had leukemia, type of cancer, and returned to wrestling when it went into remission in 2019. But the program went ahead. Many of the performers took to social media ahead of the event to argue that the show must go on despite COVID-19, the show must go on not despite COVID-19, but because of it. So you have this is a wrestler here, Seth Rollins, from his Twitter. It says, today is WrestleMania. It says, every year since I was a little boy, I've woken up on the morning of WrestleMania feeling excited. The day had finally arrived. WrestleMania was bigger than Christmas for me. Since 2013, that excitement has been coupled with surreality, as I've been so fortunate to have played a small role in the lore of the event, hopefully inspiring young children to follow their dreams the way my idols did for me, and giving anyone watching moments to look forward to and memories to look back on. Today is WrestleMania, and that feels so strange to say in the midst of the pandemic. It says WrestleMania is not the only fighting sport that plans to go ahead. Mixed martial arts showcase UFC 249 is still slated to go on April 14th. It says in late March, UFC President Dana White came under fire for comments he made about the pandemic. He said UFC 249 would be continuing as planned in April. Quote, the question becomes, how long are we going to do this, he asked. How long are we going to stay in our houses and hide? So it's very interesting. So World Wrestling Entertainment, I still call it the WWF, World Wrestling Federation, because that's what I grew up on. And I am not a big wrestling fan now. I grew up on it. In the 80s, I liked Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and of course Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. That's the era when I was really into wrestling. I don't really have, any skin in this fight. I actually support UFC more than I support WrestleMania and pro wrestling at this point, because I have watched some of those fights within, like, say, the last couple years. I have to be into the fighter to be into UFC. So it's kind of interesting what they're doing. And this is also in the midst of a recent proposal by the Major League Baseball where they're actually looking at doing their season in Phoenix. They're actually looking at doing their entire season in Phoenix, where it would only be the players and the officials and the coaches, and no audience. There would be no spectators. The reason they want to do it in Phoenix is because Phoenix is one of the big spring training hubs, so we have a lot of different fields out here. Baseball is a really big thing, in the Phoenix metro area. So it's kind of interesting to see what a lot of these companies are doing and trying to navigate the current crisis. And obviously, some of these decisions can be very controversial, but it's also interesting to see what they're trying to do. And by the way, Josh, I am sorry. I did. Yes, it is fake. You said what? Fake? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry to break it to you, but UFC's not, as far as I know, unless it's like a fixed fight where they throw they throw the fight. But Dave, do you have any thoughts about this?
Well, let's see. I saw some people commenting on WrestleMania when it was actually happening, and I thought it was. At first, I thought they were watching a rebroadcast of something, and I didn't realize it was like a current real, like it was going live. Like I didn't realize it was an actual. I thought it was a rebroadcast because people kept calling out Undertaker, and I was like, "Isn't he retired?" So it made me think that it was a rebroadcast of something else.
So you didn't even realize it was live. You didn't realize it was live until right now, until me bringing up the story.
I had no idea. I didn't watch it. I haven't been a wrestling fan for a very long time. I did watch something that had a wrestling connection that actually plays into pop culture because someone has actually taken footage of Macho Man and cut him in as if he was the Emperor talking to Darth Vader. It's the scene in Empire where Vader kneels down and the projection of the Emperor comes up and says, "Oh yeah," and he's doing the whole Macho Man thing.
Does he ask him to snap into a Slim Jim?
No, he doesn't. But it's like those classic Macho Man burns, like the big trash talking thing. He's like, "And I saw what you did there, and it cut me. It cut me real deep, And they show clips where it's like him talking to Luke and saying, we can rule the galaxy as father and son. You can destroy the Emperor. So they kept picking up all these different moments and then having Macho Man. And the whole time, Vader's just kind of like, almost kind of like the dog with the tilting of the head, just listening, So it's pretty funny. Well, I thought it was funny. I showed some other people that didn't get it. It was like, whew. But for me, I got it. I thought it was funny. That's, something's going to have to be done. Now, just so everyone knows, for reasons I can't explain, I was classified as an essential worker, and I've been at work pretty much every day.
Yeah.
It's been stressful at times. I've wanted to punch people at times. It's not been fun. Okay. Not all the people that are out working with people are being nice or kind. It's difficult. It's tense. It's not been fun. Okay. But that being said, eventually at some point, we're all just going to have to figure out a way to move forward. I don't know what that is. I don't know when that is. Certain parts of the country.
Did you hear about the Major League Baseball proposal? Did you have any thoughts on that?
I hadn't heard that until you just brought that up. I'd heard someone talking about something similar to that, but I didn't realize that was an actual serious conversation.
Well, that was the plan before. Remember? They were going to start doing that. I think even the NBA was going to start doing that, but then they wanted to shut down because they had numerous positive cases. You know what I mean? And so they actually shut down before everything else officially shut down because they had players that tested positive. Right. I'm not sure if you saw the thing with Mark Cuban, where they actually showed him getting the message while he's watching the game. Mark Cuban owns an NBA basketball. They showed him getting the message and the reaction, and it's like, yep, they were shutting it all down because the NBA decided to do that. But before that time, they were talking about, doing something similar where it would just be the players, the officials, no spectators. In fact, I saw a game where the professional Australian basketball team was doing just that. And then I think they got shut down too. And then I recently saw a thing where they did the sumo championship in Japan, and that went forward again, but with no spectators, and that was fairly recently. So it's kind of interesting to me because on the one hand, I feel as that you got to figure out ways to get around this. That's the one hand that I feel about this is like you got to figure out ways to keep your business going. You've got to figure out ways to keep people entertained, especially people that are stuck at home. You know what I mean? That's one of the things that I like about the fact that we're doing this show. You know, in my small way, I feel like, hey, we're giving people a diversion. We give something to see, something to do, if you will. But you know, on a larger scale, these other entities are trying to do the same thing. And are we going to end up causing more harm than good if we shut them down indefinitely with no end in sight and no plan to get them back up and running? You know, because to me, it makes a lot more sense to phase things in than to do it all at once. And the next thing you know, just one day, we've got crowded stadiums again without even really knowing whether this thing has been taken out or not. You know, if you use the analogy of the Spanish flu of 1918, there were like 2 or 3 waves of that. So we don't know exactly where we are with that right now. And we won't until it happens. So it seems to me that you have to find some sort of plan. Joss mentions, he says, I cannot see how that would work, 32 teams in one city. Again, it's because we have so many stadiums. They have a plan. They've already got the plan. Whether they're going to do it or not is the question. But it's feasible in Phoenix because we just have so many. We have so many baseball stadiums here because of spring training. So it is feasible to do it. It's possible. They could do it here in Arizona. Bobby just joined us, and Bobby Chambers, glad to see you. And he says, hello, gents. The baseball idea is crazy. It says the Rangers played 2 blocks from me. And that's right. You live in the West Valley, right? And there's a lot of stadiums in the West Valley of Phoenix on the west side. I live on the east side. But everywhere in Phoenix, there are professional baseball stadiums for spring training. They're all over the place. And then Jane did mention, by the way, she does look forward to our show, and we look forward to always seeing you here as well. So,
yeah, it's one of those things. Like I have yet to see a spring training game in Phoenix, but it's a big deal because I have so many friends that are still really big into baseball. I mean, I'm actually a baseball fan too. I actually have a bunch of things that sit over here on my desk. So I'm not going to grab everything that's sitting over here. But anyhow, like I played baseball as a kid. Johnny Bench was my favorite player, and I was obviously I'm a big Cincinnati Reds fan. You know, whether they're good or not doesn't matter to me. I still support them. So and it's weird because I've actually gone down to Phoenix for seminars and stuff, and I've had to drive by like the where the Oakland A's and stuff play and everything, and it's crazy because it's just like they have their own little stadium here, and it's just so weird because I remember hearing stories, and when you drive by, you go, wow, so they're serious about this. There's the logo, big as daylight, you know what I mean, on the side of this huge building. It's like they really play here, okay. And it's a much larger presence in Phoenix when spring training is going on than I think a lot of people would realize. There's like so many games going on. It's crazy. So,
and the other thing is spring training was cut short because of the pandemic. So that's another thing that, you know, for a lot of the people out here would be kind of a cool thing if they ended up doing all the games down in Arizona, you know, because obviously you can't go to the game, but it still would be cool. I think it would still be cool. And I'm not a big baseball fan. I don't like watching baseball on TV, quite frankly. I would rather go to a game in person. I don't really like watching it on TV. It's not entertaining to me on TV. But for a lot of people it is. And in the absence of anything else, sure, people are going to watch it. You know, if there's nothing else on, especially with sports. I mean, sports are at a standstill right now. So it would be interesting to me. And it is interesting to me that WWE is still going and UFC is planning to go, you know, very soon. We'll see how that works.
Well, it'll be interesting.
Joss did mention, you know, the curve may be hitting a plateau, but a plateau does not mean it's gone, just controlled. You need no new infections for at least twice the length of time for incubation before you can say it's gone. And Josh, I was mentioning the historical parallel of the flu of 1918. We don't want to get too deep into that, but that did occur in multiple waves. I think a lot of us understand that. A lot of us understand it. The only thing I would argue is that rather than just try to do everything all at once, some sort of a phased plan seems like it should be in order, and that would be the way to go rather than just go all at once. I saw a cool picture from the Spanish flu of 1918 that showed a professional baseball game and everybody's wearing masks, which was one of the reasons I did the gag at the beginning of the show. Was I want to encourage people to wear masks because I think it's very important. And during the Spanish flu of 1918, it was pretty much mandatory in the United States in many places. And there's all these images, and there's one of a baseball game being played, and they're all masked up while they're playing the game. So, food for thought. Food for thought.
Interesting.